Communicate in a crisis. Understand, engage and influence consumer behavior to maximize brand trust by Kate Hartley. Hi everyone. Today I am going to review the book, Communicate in a Crisis. Understand, engage and influence consumer behavior to maximize brand trust by Kate Hartley. Social media creates new risks for brands, such as fake news and increased customer outrage. A brand can trigger a crisis and provoke negative reactions online by making a mistake people pounce on or by acting or communicating against its stated ethics or principles. England's 2018 Southern Rail imbroglio provides an example. British rail companies changed their timetables abruptly and without adequately communicating with their customers. The railroad cancelled thousands of trips, stranding commuters who were thus unable to get to work. Social media amplified the national outcry. Consumers filled Twitter with photos of overcrowded trains and jam-packed platforms. When people were powerless before social media, they now have power to influence a brand's behavior, or at least make the brand sit up and take notice. Rapidly proliferating fake news, which is no longer only a political ploy, also targets companies. After a blog falsely reported remarks supposedly made by the CEO of PepsiCo during the 2016 election, the company faced a boycott, and its stock price fell 5%. The new structures of social media amplify the emotional reactions consumers have to passion brands. These brands conjure profound consumer loyalty and generate meaningful interactions with customers. Passion brands include Ben & Jerry's, Nike, Harley-Davidson, Netflix and Apple, to name a few. Influencer marketing, another exploding trend, spreads your brand message through the voice of a third party. But brands must beware of falsification, such as when an influencer purchases followers. Examine online or posters' engagement rates to determine their number of genuine followers and gauge their true influence. Conscious consumerism, trolling and expectations of immediacy are the new norms. The rise of conscious consumerism creates both opportunities and dangers for brands. In 2017, for example, the Edelman Trust Barometer found that 57% of consumers make purchasing decisions based on a brand's social or political stances. Nike made a particularly bold move by keeping National Football League San Francisco 49er Colin Kaepernick as its spokesperson after his decision to kneel in protest during the American national anthem. The hashtag #TakeAKnee campaign resonated with its audience, even after the league shunned Kaepernick, despite his all-star status. Trolls, posters who write offensive comments and instigate arguments, create problems for brands. Virtual communities fall prey to the online disinhibition effect, which manifests in the extreme emotions and behavior people display online under cover of anonymity and invisibility. Brands can proactively prevent trolling by setting and enforcing rules against abusive behavior in the communities they monitor. In the age of Amazon and Netflix, we don't have to wait for anything anymore. Brands must assume and work around the impacts of immediacy. The human mind is wired for instant gratification, and social media exacerbate that tendency. Facebook, for example, considers a brand responsive only if it answers 90% of online questions within 15 minutes. Crisis management must address the social media hydra with planning and speedy execution. Along with expectations of a speedy response, other media trends that have an impact on crisis management include consumer information overload and the public's declining trust in authority figures. Taken together, these trends increasingly require companies to be as forthright as possible at all times. Consider hiring extra staff during a crisis to help your company respond effectively to the inevitable high volume of requests. Brand crisis managers must differentiate between an ongoing or reoccurring business issue and a genuine crisis, which is an event that threatens the company's core business. The sheer volume of information we all get now means that we are half listening to everyone. And the rawest filter of data is to ignore it completely. customer experience expert Dale Roberts. During a crisis, the need for urgency becomes more extreme, so brands must prepare a proactive social media information strategy to avoid being overwhelmed in a crisis. The single most important task and strategy: make sure you provide correct information and never sacrifice accuracy for the sake of a quick response or fast action. Have a crisis plan in place, but make sure it covers more than responding to an emergency. A successful crisis plan also should include a path to recovering from the crisis. Having a strong recovery plan will help your brand make the transition back to business as usual and will help you determine that the events and PR activities you schedule don't seem out of place. In Greek mythology, the Hydra was a water serpent that grew 2 new heads every time someone chopped one head off. Social media can resemble the Hydra, with growing chains of negative or false content popping up on Twitter, LinkedIn and elsewhere, all requiring constant monitoring. Also monitor and address lies and misinformation that crop up on other companies' websites. Always ask another provider to remove a post, especially if it is openly untrue. Sometimes you can ask your customers for help. For example, hackers subjected the English energy drink Bang to a hoax in 2018 by showing a falsified video depicting an open can of Bang bursting into flames. The company countered with a statement asserting that the video was bogus, and fans posted videos in which they tried to replicate the experiment without success, thus proving that Bang would not explode. From United Airlines to TalkTalk, case studies demonstrate that honesty and accuracy are crucial. United Airlines suffered a PR debacle, a case study of how not to handle a crisis, in 2017, when crew members violently removed a seemingly uncooperative passenger. After video of the incident spread worldwide, United's CEO made a tone-deaf statement minimizing the passenger's suffering. This incident reduced United's market capitalization by $770 million. That damage came not from the incident itself, but from the company's poor response. Of the 5 crises we examined, only one CEO was still in place 6 months after the crisis ended. In the case of TalkTalk, a British internet company that went out of service for 24 hours due to a cyber attack, the company's crisis management response lacked specifics. When reporters asked for details, the CEO and board members could not clarify which security measures had been in place nor how many customers were affected by the attack. In part due to its lame public response, TalkTalk's share price dropped. The business lost £77 million and had to pay a £400,000 fine. To protect your company, forge an internal culture of truthfulness. Although it may seem risky at times, a strict policy of always telling the truth makes your brand more competitive. Using clear language during a crisis also helps restore customer trust. And your corporate representatives must do more than talk. They must take action to resolve the problem. The concept of business resilience has 2 facets. The first is resilience itself, the ability to prevent an attack from happening in the first place and to survive if it occurs. The second is continuity, a firm's ability to continue to function during a crisis. That means keeping the lights on and communicating with customers about any service outages or changes. Building these different aspects of resilience takes time and resources, but a company can identify its vulnerabilities and build responses to them into its plan. Don't overlook technological tools that can assist you in foreseeing a crisis and handling it as it unfolds. Sophisticated AI, big data analysis and social media listening tools can help you detect a potential commercial crisis by scrutinizing the pattern of customer complaints. Crisis teams must have clear and defined roles and responsibilities. A good crisis communication strategy pulls in best practices from leadership training and team building. In a stressful crisis situation, your staff members will reach their biological limits after 8 hours. To keep your war room functioning, develop the staffing depth to rotate people on and off in 8-hour shifts, and build in time for resilience practices such as rest breaks and meditation. Good resilience training will give you techniques to avoid catastrophic thinking, which creates pressure. If you are thinking about the worst scenario, then you experience it physiologically. The Positive Psychology Center at the University of Pennsylvania teaches a framework for resilience, PERMA, which is an acronym for positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning and accomplishment. Crisis team members should establish mutual trust in advance of any crisis. Sometimes an external consultant can deal with a situation more candidly than insiders can and will be able to speak more freely with leaders about what needs to happen. Internally, your legal and communications departments must work together, though they might feel at cross purposes at times, especially when it comes to making apologies. The single most important role for a leader in a crisis is setting out the company's strategic intent. A one-sentence statement of the outcome the company seeks to achieve by its responses and actions. Leaders must also be ready to communicate with empathy and humanity and to undertake decisions even if they don't yet possess the optimal amount of information or data. Crisis prevention and response follow predictable patterns you can and should anticipate. A crisis has 4 predictable stages. 1. Pre-crisis planning. In this stage, focus on creating a hierarchy, a step-by-step plan and a structured response. 1. Integrate scenario planning with communication strategies for each possible scenario. 2. Prodromal. This is a medical term for the period of time before an outbreak of a disease. 2. Brand managers should take advantage of any time available before the onset of an inevitable crisis to brief the relevant staff and stakeholders, assemble the crisis team, review the crisis plan and adjust it to address the specific needs of the impending emergency. 3. Crisis mode. During the crisis, you must slow down, breathe and think through decisions before you act. 3. Human nature will spur you to take action during a crisis, but ill-considered and callous statements companies have made to the press have done them tremendous damage in the past. 3. Think before you speak. 4. Recovery. This stage is the longest. 4. How you handle a crisis and its aftermath will define your brand for years. 4. The crisis will probably resurface with further developments as you resolve aspects of it. Social posts about the crisis will show up in search feeds for years. Carefully consider all corporate statements before you release them. Read them aloud. Imagine having a person affected by the crisis listening and reacting. If influencers are associated with your brand, they will be asked questions about you. They are part of your crisis plan whether you want them to be or not. Do not underestimate the role of influencers in crisis communications. You should keep them in the loop during crisis planning and when a crisis breaks, since they act as proponents of your brand. Their authenticity and their positions outside the company lend credibility to your corporate statements. They play a critical role in social listening by hearing from their audiences, following what they say about your brand and noting whether people are spreading misinformation. Takeaways. Social media creates new risks for brands, including fake news and increased customer outrage. Conscious consumerism, trolling and expectations of immediacy are the new norms. Crisis management must address the social media hydra with planning and speedy execution. From United Airlines to TalkTalk, case studies demonstrate that honesty and accuracy are crucial. Crisis teams must have clear and defined roles and responsibilities. Crisis prevention and response follow predictable patterns you can and should anticipate. Please like, share and subscribe for more videos. Thanks for watching.